Hello, everyone. Welcome back. My name is Jeff Mendelson, and this is the One Big Tip podcast. My guest today is AJ Saunders, a self-proclaimed SEO geek. AJ has been working at search engine optimization since 2014 when he created AJS Digital Group so that he could help companies grow using organic SEO strategies. Having worked at hundreds of businesses across multiple niches and industries, AJ's strategies help them grow to over six figures annually. AJ's one big tip is to set measurable KPIs that you can measure daily. That's how you gauge the health of your online business. Solid SEO is still the best way to bring customers to your website because it is a low cost lead gen where you own the farm, as opposed to social media platforms where, frankly, you do not. So this is going to be a really great conversation today. AJ, thank you so much for joining me and welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm really pumped to be here.
Yeah, so this is going to be great. So you've been doing SEO for a long time, and I also have a digital marketing agency. I used to, sell SEO services as well. And I'll be honest, I kind of got out of that, because it was something that the pace of the changes were so much. And I think one of the biggest things for me was that I was not able to really control the conversation and control the metrics of everything that was going on. Now, granted, my information is about 5 to 7 years old at this point. I would love to learn a little bit more about your business and how you're able to still maintain your effectiveness in this industry even to this year. How's that look in your world?
Yeah, sure. So for me, it really is understanding the fundamentals. So a lot of people want a lot of very basic things. So they want good content. They want it to be easy to be found, and they want a fast site. Everything else is hot air. So as long as you have a fast site, good content, good usability, you're fine. And so I actually wrote on LinkedIn on Monday, or maybe it was Tuesday, that if you carry your SEO strategy every time there's a new update, you're doing something fundamentally wrong. Because SEO hasn't changed since day one. It's just that Google is trying to kind of counteract all these scammy parasites that are doing really short-term kind of techniques and methodologies that don't work over the longer term.
So that's interesting that you say that. One of the things that I used to tell my clients was that you don't write content for search engines, you write content for people.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely.
And that really should have been, like you said, ingrained in everyone's head from day one. So what happens is when you have these different, these different tactics, a lot of the times, marketers are looking for shortcuts all the time, right? Which is how it gave birth to, to keyword farms and to, different types of, and link trees and things like that. And it just really, like you said, polluted the air, right? And it really polluted everything as far as Google is concerned. It's like, wait a second, people are trying to game us instead of trying to make it actually usable, because that was really Google's, mission from the start.
Yeah.
How did you help companies address that? Where you have one SEO company's like, oh yeah, we're going to get you to the top of these rankings, within 4 months, and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. But there was probably a whole mess of stuff behind the scenes that they needed to do as well in order to make those quick gains. How did that affect your work as you were building up your business?
So I primarily work with clients who haven't really done too much SEO. So it's this whole methodology of trying to go in there and how to do it from the ground up. For me, it's been great because I hadn't had to deal with too many things. And when I have so many things, they haven't done anything bad. So people that bought like bad link packs off Fiverr, for example, a lot of that stuff has a half-life. And so Google just accepts that you're going to have a certain amount of spammy links to your website, and so it just ignores it after a while. And so as long as you're doing things like you're doing great content, and you're improving content all the time, and you're adding valuable good links, you're absolutely fine.
So, all right, so that's all right and good, because basically what you're talking about now is, making sure that you have your headers set up correctly, you're tagging your images correctly, you have a good internal link structure as well as an external link structure. I guess the biggest question then is, how do you measure all of that, right? Because it all just seems so subjective. Like when you're looking at it and you're trying to figure out like, okay, I made these changes. How well did that change actually affect my site? Right. And really what that comes down to is, just measuring KPIs, both in, like on the page level and on the domain level, and then even zooming out to see how things are going in terms of sales, in terms of leads captured, things like that. Yeah. Talk to me a little bit about not only what the KPIs are for measuring this, but how they can really help you understand the health of your website as opposed to just, throwing numbers on a screen and seeing what happens.
Right. So for most of my clients, I recommend having 2 or 3 KPIs. So I always say revenue is one, and the other one is time on the site. Because if you can get people to spend at least 3 minutes on your site, you then actually have a better chance of converting them or getting them to take that next step. So that's download a PDF, sign for email list, or whatever. And so yes, those are the two main ones I talk to clients about all the time who don't care maybe about SEO value, but care about how they're going to generate revenue from their website. And then the more granular thing about your rankings. So for me, I want clients to get at least 50% of their rankings. That he was in the top 3. And then we can talk about things like what pages are hitting the 3-minute mark, what aren't, what aren't, and so that gives us room to improve. But also it's then about the half-life. So are we getting people returning back? Are people coming back time and time again and reading a piece of content and then getting in touch with us and then saying, I read that blog post 3 months ago, and that really inspired me to take action now, because they know that you're actually onto a winner, and leads may not come through instantly, but it may take 3-6 months, may take 3 years. 3 years, and so it's really important to capture how you're generating leads, what leads are coming through, etc. But it's also important to kind of capture where people are falling off the user journey. Because if you have a mapped user journey, which gets people in through, say, like blog posts, onto a product page, onto a sign up form, and then do a couple of emails before you do a call, and a couple of emails after the call, you can then see where people actually get stuck. And that's where the real power is. Because you can start to kind of really fine tune what your CTAs are, what your steps are, because you can see where people are getting stuck, and that can actually help you.
So it's interesting because what you're talking about is not only creating the actual content that goes on the page. It's creating that map and that that nice call to action. You really should be telling people what to do next. There should be some kind of flow. Like, don't just put the content on a page and hope that people are going to automatically get all excited about it, right? There really needs to be like, okay, if you enjoyed this, then let me help you. Or would you like to learn more about how our framework works? Please download this PDF and give us your email address, right? There should always be some kind of action that happens afterwards, because that really helps in terms of gauging effectiveness, right?
But what my approach is kind of changed the last couple of weeks. So we talked 2 weeks or 3 weeks ago. I said CTAs, just put something together, so like click it, download. Whereas in the last couple of weeks, I've been trying with clients especially, is how to make that really sexy. And so rather than having I can help you bring more revenue in. Click here to book a call. You can then start using a narrative. You can then say, Michelle was told not to become a real estate agent. Now she has a waiting list. Interested? Question mark. And then book a call today. And so basically, that's far more sexy, isn't it?
It is, because basically what you're saying is that, the thing that it gets me is that there's still a lot of people and a lot of companies that just say, sign up here to get my newsletter, right? Which is totally like, please no, because I get already 1,000 emails a day. I have a hard enough time, sorting through those. Why would I sign up for that again? Like, what's the value in it for me? Right. And if you're not articulating that, then you're right. It's not sexy at all. Right. There's nothing that's going to make me, turn it in unless unless that person or that company really sold me well on other parts of their business. Either I really wanted to get in on this, I don't know, in this executive coach's world where they're, giving out a lot of great information, or there's a company that sends out, 15% off coupons every once in a while, then maybe, right? But in both of those cases, the value of what that company or person is giving me has already been defined either on that same CTA or somewhere else on the site. So to your point, you're right. Just sign up for my newsletter doesn't help anybody, right? And you're really going to get some pretty low engagement on it. Whereas when you make it value based, like what kind of value are you going to get from, for the exchange of your email address, then you're coming at something, really good. I wanted to switch gears for a second and talk a little bit about timeframes.
Yeah.
Right. Because, this is selling an organic search engine optimization service is not as transactional as people, may think, right? Because there's a lot of groundwork that goes into, first of all, the analysis of how everything is working. There's also some changes that'll probably need to be made in order to make your SEO campaign much more effective. How long does it take you now to show results when you bring on a new client and be able to show them not only that, hey, this service that you purchased from me actually works, but here are the results and why it's great for you?
So I'm going to use the famous marketing thing of it depends. But I'm going to give a caveat because this is the important part. So a lot of SEO work is done in the first 30 to 60 days, but a lot of the results happen in the first 3 to 6 months. And so you are generally waiting around for things to happen after the front loaded part is the actual work. So it depends what the client wants and what we can do in the time that they've allowed. So they've got 3 months. We have to move pretty quickly, and they're going to have to be more established to get the results that they're going to want. When they're launching a new site, they actually start to get some traction, and they start to actually get some good traffic through. And so it really depends on where what their ambitions are and what the market is like. Because you have the best product, you have the best marketing, but if you don't have an actual good fit in the marketplace, nothing's going to matter. So if you're trying to sell, blue widgets, and your main competitor is Amazon, you're going to have a really hard time. Really hard time. But if you're trying to sell something like individually made hand-blue widgets that are really unique that Amazon couldn't do, then you have a bigger opportunity and you can market yourself more effectively and more aggressively, and that will provide results quicker than if you're just selling widgets.
It's interesting that you say that, because I would imagine then that you sometimes have client calls that you don't have great news to report, especially in the early days. Right. How does that manifest itself? How do you handle those types of calls? And, when the client does become either unhappy or nervous or even impatient with the results, of how you can help keep them on, as clients, and not just pull the plug saying, something, I don't have the stomach for this?
I think a lot of it comes down to your strategy. I think a lot of people use the word strategy and they're talking about tactics. So I think if you have a solid strategy and you got the tactics in place in line, that make sense into them step by step. It's then convincing the client that actually the strategy, the tactic, and your KPIs and your measurements are actually right. It's just the marketplace is taking longer to respond than what you wish. But that's just life, and that's just they're going to find it probably in that situation with any marketing agency that they go to. So it's really important at that point is to say, we know our strategy is going to work because we've done it with other people. The time we can't guarantee, we can't don't want to say justify, but we can't call what time it's going to be. We just know that our strategy will work for other businesses or other clients, right?
Interesting. So walk me through a scenario then of how a client came to you. They had a pretty challenging, mandate, and how you were able to deliver results for them, right?
Yeah, sure. So I've got a client at the moment, and they had three different websites, and we've now gone down to basically one and a half. So they've got a brand website to do with the CEO. And then they've got one for their corporate. And the problem is they didn't have any SEO training. So they're writing lots of blog posts that were really good, but they didn't have a strategy. So I've gone in there in the last kind of a year now and just coached their team on how to do SEO properly and how to actually get results. There's been a real slow burner, and we've had some real big challenges along the way. But they're now starting to get good rankings. They're now starting to get inquiries through the website, and so they're starting to turn the ship around. And so that's really exciting. But it has been a lot of re-education, a lot of coaching rather than doing the work for them. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it does, because what happens is, I used to have to deal with that a lot as well, because it even got to the point where I even stopped, I made a business decision to stop sending reports simply because, they really weren't that relevant, especially in the short term, right? Because, if I had a client that was ranking pretty good for some keywords in April, and then the May report comes out and it dips slightly, of course, negative, that negative dip is like, hey, why is that negative? What are you doing to combat it? And I'm like, well, not much. We're waiting for things to correct themselves, right? Again, if you're just focusing on the tactic as opposed to
about that. Sorry. The other thing about that is, and I always say to every client that I take on, is learn to deal with your emotions when it comes to reporting. Because you'll have days where everything goes great. You'll have days where everything goes bad. You'll have days where everything seems average. But the psychological trick, if you like, is to be even keeled, regardless of whether it's up, down, left, right, or centre. Because you probably can't control it. And if you be allowed to control you, you're then not as good as you should be.
Exactly. I agree with you 100%. Thank you so much for sharing that. AJ, can you please let everyone know how they can learn more about your company and how they can reach out to you directly if they want to learn more?
Sure. So I do digital marketing for e-commerce companies. We offer both done for you, done with you, and a couple of courses. You can find them all the information at agsdigitalgroup.com. You can reach out to me on Instagram. I'm A_J_Saunders. Please follow me. Please interact. Please send me messages. I'm always happy to help. Always just an email away. Free 15-minute call from the website. So if I can help people, get in contact. And if I can't, I probably can help push people in the right direction.
Amazing stuff. AJ, thank you so much for joining me. It's been a lot of fun.
It's been an absolute pleasure.
I really appreciate you taking the time, and this was great advice. Thank you so much.